Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back. Boy, have I frustrated some people out there. Nobody seems to be on board with the idea that Avatar Fire and Ash is not quite up to the same standard or level as the previous film, Way of Water, which actually did pretty good in its first 10 days, which is the only comparative that we have at this point. But when you look at the numbers, we have a $50 million gap or more between the domestic earnings then and now, which we'll get into in just a moment with the help of a couple of articles, not just one from Cosmic Book News, but another one from That Park Place. So with that in mind, here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, double check you're still subscribed to the channel. Yeah, I know right now some of you are a little frustrated because you really like the blue people and you really like the idea of Avatar and you love the climate messaging that's just inserted into this. And of course, you know, with the only good or bad guys represented by the messaging aspect of things. But we'll skip all of that and just talk about the facts here. Matt McGloin reported back on December 21st that Avatar Fire and Ash starts cool at the box office, which is true. It faced an uphill battle. It didn't really have quite the same numbers as the previous film. And when you look at it, that's kind of an accurate headline. King James Cameron's Avatar Fire and Ash opened with a cooler box office than expected. The flick will definitely need legs, which I think it has. Let alone, will it score a profit? I don't know. Do you think it cost $400 million like has been rumored? If so, if you use the traditional 3 times multiplier to break even, that's $1.2 billion. It's on its way, over $700 million, so I would say it's probably going to get there. But how much further, and does it have $2 billion in it? Well, that's a conversation for another time. Now, look, I'm going to tell you, I am not a big fan of these movies, which I've told you before. So, you know, guilty as charged. But at the same time, I know what makes money and what doesn't. This has to make $1.2 billion to make money. Let's not argue about that. But what it also needs is to charge Disney up for investing more money with James Cameron to make the next 2 films. Is it going to make 5 and 6? Are you going to get to 7 as was originally planned? Or are we done here? Because James Cameron didn't sound so sure the last time he was asked about it. Now, the good news, at least for Disney, is that there was a similar trend with the previous film, Avatar 2. The flick opened lower than estimated, but still somehow managed to rake in $2.3 billion. To this day, I still only know of one person who went to see it in theaters. And this is a theme I don't quite understand, because if Matt McGloin is having this kind of anecdotal experience, and if I've talked to Marvin about this, Marvin Montanaro, who we're going to get into his article next, or at maybe WDW Pro's article, there's a lot of people that are like that. It's like, I don't really know anybody that went to see this other than the people who reviewed it. And that says something. If they're not getting me, a true sci-fi fan, in the door, who are they getting and why? Now, Avatar Fire and Ash opened below Avatar 2. So not only did it start slow, like Avatar 2, it started well below. The preview box office was only $12 million. That's not a whole lot. That's down from Avatar's $17 million. We're already in a $5 million deficit domestically, and that's the thing we're talking about now. The first Friday, which includes the Thursday numbers, brought in $36.5 million. Again, that's down from Avatar's $53.2 million, which is different. Again, the numbers are substantially different by several million. For the opening weekend, Avatar Fire and Ash opened domestically with $88 million. Avatar 2 brought in $134.1 million. That's a 35% decline. The math goes on and on. You can't argue with the math. This is not the biggest opening that they were hoping for. I can tell you that. They wanted numbers like they got with the first one, and they wanted better numbers than they got with the second one. But they didn't get that, and I don't think any of you out there are claiming they did. The international box office comparison is fair, I guess. The Avatar flick see big returns. Way of Water brought in over $1.6 billion with a B, cinema score at the box office. Avatar Fire and Ash opens with 257 million internationally. Avatar 2, 307. That's a substantial difference in international numbers. Now, we'll get to the domestic ones in just a moment. But Fire and Ash's opening weekend total stands at 345 million, whereas Avatar 2 opened at 441 million. Nearly $100 million difference here. 20% difference actually overall if you want to break it down that way. So the question remains, can Fire and Ash still reach break even? Yeah, of course. You're looking at a massive $1 billion break-even number, which I think is inaccurate. I'm going to say it again for the record. This should be $1.2 billion for break-even, just with classic advertising and expenses based on a $400 million budget, which is what this film has been reported to have cost. We don't know the actual real figures and won't know unless a substantial portion of it was made in the UK, and we're going to get that later. So we'll see if any of that's true or where any of this breaks down eventually. But for now, we need to get, well, better. So with that 20% difference accounted for, if Fire and Ash performs similar to The Way of the Water, it's still going to be around $1.8 billion, not that $2 billion that everybody was hoping for. Now, I don't think the box office is going to completely collapse. I just don't think it's going to perform like it did before. And I'm not the only one. In looking at the article coming from That Park Place, and again, this is actually WDW Pro writing it, saying, no, Avatar Fire and Ash hasn't suddenly taken off at the box office. It hasn't. If you look at the trajectory of the performance, it's doing what films normally do. It's starting to tail off, but you're starting to see massive media hype, and the spin machine has been in effect since this thing opened up. Going into a Christmas holiday, I would have expected bigger numbers, but I was impressed that the fall off was not more substantial. This last weekend, just under 30% of a fall off is still pretty impressive, at least as far as I'm concerned. Now, let's take a look at what I think is most relevant. By the time we've reached the second weekend, as you can see here, we're at $217 million. Well, that's somewhat impressive, or at least it is to me. It's just not the kind of numbers that this needed to see. In order to have remained competitive with The Way of Water, it needed to have done much better, especially domestically. When we take a look at weekend box office's performances, let's look at what December 23rd looked like here. $261 million in its second weekend. There's a substantial difference here. 261 versus 217. Is that $50 million difference? I think it's pretty close to that, if not exactly that, by the time every dollar's in. The only good thing, and I'm going to give it praise, is that it only fell off 28% from the previous weekend. This thing has been out in theaters for 10 days, and domestically, we're sitting at 217 million as opposed to 261 million. That deficit isn't something that's going to go away either domestically or internationally, which is another big conversation. But back to the article, because Pro took the time to write it, back on the 26th, saying headlines about telling you that Avatar Fire and Ash is legging out better than its predecessor I find quite interesting. You probably will too. There's a reason that language is being used specifically, as Pro delineates here. It's because when you do a direct comparison between the two films, it's clear Fire and Ash is in significant decline. In fact, the film is down 40% domestically at same exact point on the 26th that it was, well, back on the same number of days with The Way of Water. And as has been said before, because ticket prices are much higher, that means that it's far worse because of the actual attendance numbers, which is what I was trying to get at in my last video about Avatar and its floppiness. I'm not calling it a flop. Please don't misunderstand. Maybe I should say weakness, but then people will be upset about that. I'm going to say lack of sustainability for those of you in the audience that appreciate the message. Man, I just can't find good language for this. What I can say is how bad it is for Avatar Fire and Ash. this movie just isn't doing as well, everybody expected. And there are a lot of people that are super angry about it, which, hey, I don't know. Are you an investor on this film? Maybe you have cause to be. But if you like the blue people, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not here to yuck your yum. I'm just here to look at how this franchise may be tailing off in a way that Disney and maybe other investors may not want to put quite as much money into it going into the home stretch, or at least the last 4 films that James Cameron originally indicated he wanted to make. I don't think we're going to get there. And I also still think we're not going to get to $2 billion. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? That's what I'm here for. Let me know your thoughts and why down in the comments section below. And for those of you who had such a negative reaction about the blue people on the last video, which again, I understand, I'm just going to point to the fact that things are well behind and there are fewer butts in seats here domestically. That might even be true internationally, since I haven't been keeping track of where ticket prices have gone in the international markets. I'm not sure if China's more expensive or less expensive than it was 2 years ago. I think those factors could certainly be included to make the numbers even more accurate, but I'm going to suggest that what's happening here stateside is likely happening internationally, and you have fewer butts in seats despite maybe higher prices. Let me know what you think on that as well in the comments section down below. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just not at any of these Avatar movies.